Sleep. You've had a television show, so everybody's seen your acts. I guess you have to be a bit like a comedian and try and find new material all the time.
Yes, especially as we're coming back to the West End so soon, after being at the Apollo in the spring. I think a lot of people might think it's the same show. Well, it's not. I mean, we have about 12 new numbers in the show. We've kept some of the old ones because it's like, I suppose, like a pop singer having a few hit records. Unless they sing them, then the audience get a bit disappointed. And I think the same thing is happening now. I'm building a rep with Dash of a lot of different numbers. I think if I didn't do the Chaplain, they'd miss it, and a couple of the other takeoffs. But most of the material is changed, in fact, for the show.
It's a far cry, Dash, though, isn't it, from the Royal Ballet? I mean, you've got last-minute rehearsals to get ready for your show. I guess you had all the time in the world, didn't you, to practice before?
Well, it's the equivalent of a 3-act ballet, really. I mean, 2 hours dancing. And usually with a 3-act ballet, I mean, there's at least 4 months usually to produce that because, you know, the Royal Ballet is subsidised. They have rehearsal rooms permanently there. They have a company of 70 members to draw on. And so in 5 weeks, I have to do the same amount of work that they do in that period of time, and I have to hire a studio. I only have 12 dancers. If 2 of them are sick for a week, then we have to work around that and make sure that not too many people are on stage at the same time. There are a lot of headaches that go with just trying to choreograph good numbers in the show. And when they create ballets at Covent Garden, they only do about 2 or 3 a year because they're so expensive. And so you're lucky if you're in one of them. You never know if you're going to be used. And I didn't want to just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
How tall are you?
5'2", eyes of greeny grey.
Actually, you've taken off half an inch because I thought it was 5'2.5".
Yeah, well, as you get older, you shrink a bit. I don't know.
Do you think that was a blessing in disguise, actually being that small?
It made me fight harder. I mean, it made me work harder to get a better technique, because I knew if I was taller with a good technique, I could get into the company easily. But being small, I knew I couldn't get in unless my technique was that much better so that I could be able to do solo roles.
What was your first reaction, though, to knowing that you would never make the height necessary for male parts?
Well, male lead parts, you mean? Well, the fact was that, it was devastating to have trained, you know, for 5 or 6 years, and your one goal was to be in the Royal Ballet, and suddenly you realise that it wasn't because of your technique that you weren't getting in, but because of nature. I didn't like nature much after that. I didn't think it was just, you know. I thought if you were good, then you'd naturally get on, but it doesn't always work that way.
Rumour has it that you tried to suspend yourself from a doorway?
Oh yeah, you know, you stretched and things like that. But I didn't take that too seriously because, you know, I sort of gave up, really. When everybody, you see that when at boarding school, when I was at the Royal Ballet School, everybody else was just shooting up around me. And I wasn't sort of moving as fast, and hardly at all, in fact. I became quite chubby at that time as well, because I wasn't growing. The food was just going inside, it was going out instead of up.
Where did it come from? I mean, was there any model in your family?
No, there was nobody. I mean, my mother could have been on the stage as a singer, but she only did it for amateur work for charity, because she was a nurse during the war and she used to do charity concerts then. And she could have pursued a career, but because she'd had no training, she was scared. She's very sensitive, and she was scared to go into it because she had had a lack of training where all these other people had been to dance schools or singing schools or whatever, and that frightened her away. But I suppose when she realized that I wanted to do it, and it had been in her anyway, she was determined to give me the opportunity where she wasn't able to have one because there was no money in the family for her to be able to pursue it.
What about your dad? Because he did a lot with it. I mean, he was a docker, wasn't he, amongst other things?
Yeah.
I mean, could he understand this love of ballet?
I don't think so necessarily, but then I think he was prepared to fork out the money, whereas they could have spent it on other things around the home or, you know, on themselves. They actually did spend it on me. I mean, it was a struggle for them, and they did have to save. just to buy my uniform to get to the Royal Ballet School was a monstrous undertaking, because I had to have 3 green jackets and 5 pairs of this and 5 pairs of that. I mean, it was ridiculous. So the whole bill was astronomical. And of course, with the local council, they weren't prepared to help us at all. They don't give you grants for clothes. But we needed it at the time, and he never begrudged me anything. But I don't think he's that into ballet, quite frankly.
What drives Wayne Sleep to do what he does? Because is it you went without, I mean, your family went without to allow you to do it. Was that why you have this energy and this drive?
Well, I had to prove to them that I could be successful in it for a start. I had to prove it to myself and to them that I could make a career out of it. And what drove me on to form my own company was the fact that I felt that where I was, I'd stopped. And I've got to keep moving. I'm very restless. I don't sleep much.
You're a great talker. Do you think that's possibly was one of the reasons why you wanted to experiment with other things?
Yes, I talked to Christopher Gable once said that once he'd done his first acting part, he could never go on stage and keep his mouth closed again. You know, you get the bug. You know, you suddenly think, why are we doing all this mime? Well, you could quite easily say what you mean. And in a way, we have songs now in Dash, so there is that release. We sing and we have lyrics, and in the opening song we chat, because I do believe in our dance company breaking the barrier down between... I sometimes think that if an audience see you dancing and then you never speak, they feel there's a barrier between you and them. You're not quite human. You know, there's something different. And I think it puts them at their ease if you can go in and bash out a few lyrics at the beginning of the show.
Did you know that you had all this untapped talent? I mean, for acting. I mean, you're a bit of a comedian too. I mean, did you know that you had all these things?
Well, I always think I'm a jack of all trades, you know, and maybe just a master of one, which is ballet. I mean, I'm still trying. I mean, I couldn't compare myself with Fred Astaire in tap or you know, I'm not a very good singer. I put numbers over. So in a way, I mean, I don't have all this untapped talent. I'm just have a lot of nerve.